Hello everyone and welcome to the grand final of Future Now, a webinar series by Ad News and Facebook. My name is Asya Benmejdoob. I'm the publisher of Ad News and your host for the series. With the lucrative Christmas trading period just around the corner, what could be a more timely finale than a look at retail in 2020 and an outlook for 2021? We're about to meet our panelists, starting with Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Zara. I'm the CEO of the Australian Retailers Association.
And over to you, Kate.
Hello, I'm Kate Bailey and I'm the General Manager of Media and Sponsorships at Coles Supermarkets.
And we'll finish up with Boxy.
Hi, I'm Kate Box, to be known today as Boxy, the Head of Retail at Facebook.
Well, guys, throughout the series, we've heard a range of predictions from different sectors. Paul, what will be the lasting change for retailers after the year we've had in 2020?
Well, what a great way to start. I guess the interesting thing about the industry is that COVID has actually accelerated the trends that were already occurring. By my predictions, have been brought forward by about at least a decade. So what we're seeing is this fast move train of actually digital transformation, the move to contactless shopping, and of course, people wanting to be shopping in a very safe environment. We've also seen a significant move towards digital communications. So I didn't think in my time that we would see catalogues as a good example, stop being dropped to consumers' letterboxes and retailers deciding to go direct to consumer.
And Kate, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, I agree with Paul's points. Digital acceleration is without a doubt the biggest change that we've seen. We've seen 40% more customers coming directly to our website and a significant increase in customer shopping online. And it was changes like that during COVID that gave us the confidence to make the big change and stop distributing the paper catalog. And we also expect hygiene to be increasingly important to customers. Even in a post-COVID world, I think there's a much higher awareness of contagion. So bright open stores with less clutter will definitely be front of mind for us. And we've also seen from an economic perspective, what we're calling the bifurcation of the basket. Customers now and in the continuing next couple of years, there will be a group of customers that have more discretionary income in the past because they're not spending as much on international travel or hospitality. But at the same time, with job seeker and job keeper coming off, there will be also a portion of Australians that will be less off. So we are thinking a lot about making sure that we have the right offer and the right comms for two very different groups of customers.
Boxy, do you agree with those options?
I think when we think about lasting changes in retail, I'm going to build on the themes that Paul and Kate have already raised. In particular, the switch to shopping online. And we're having lots of discussions with clients about where this will settle. And we know, according to McKinsey research as early as June, that already just over half of Australian shoppers had shopped in a new way this year. And we're not seeing that slow when we look at new Kantar research that we've released for September, where 1 in 3 Australians shopped online in that month for something that they would typically buy in store. And that same research is telling us that just under half of Australians expect to shop online into the future. I think the other lasting change I would bring up is the growth we've seen in small businesses embracing digital as well. That's been great to see how they've used platforms like ours to connect with customers, and many of them were able to stay afloat over lockdown or even thrive. And then the third lasting change I would call out is the switch between online and in-store when it comes to what's experiential and what's transactional. So I think pre-COVID, online was largely transactional, and in-store was considered experiential. And during lockdown, it switched. And I think we've continued to see a merging of that. If you like, COVID's kind of introduced the full marketing funnel to the internet, and it's playing out with retailers not just showing price online, but creating demand and enabling discovery, providing excellent experiences, building trust with providing the right information to customers online, and helping customers really curate their lifestyle online. And we often refer to that new trend as shoppertainment, and I think it's here to stay because consumers love it. And we see a big increase in use of things like shopping tags. We see retailers using things like Instagram and Facebook Live to showcase supply chain and product.
Well, we know that customers are definitely moving online. In episode 3, we touched base with some disruptor brands and really looked at what they're doing. Paul, are retailers adapting the way that they're operating this year?
Well, absolutely. I guess what we've seen is retailers moving at absolute leaps and bounds. And Kate touched on that, small business particularly. It's really been lovely to watch in my local stores in the high street here move quickly to have an online service, and click and collect being one of the most popular aspects of shopping these days, because you can do the transaction, of course, from the comfort of your living room and pick up the product when it suits you. So we're seeing such a quick move that's particularly positive. And I think these trends are here to stay. Since April, according to Australia Post, over 1 million households in Australia have shopped for the first time online. And you've got to look at that and say, well, actually, that will be absolutely embedded as people discover new ways of shopping.
Kate, has that translated over at Coles?
Absolutely. What we found is that there was a large cohort of customers that weren't shopping online at all because they were just more comfortable with the experience that they had been having for years, going into a bricks and mortar store, talking to our team members, navigating through the shop. But what's interesting about COVID is suddenly a very large part of that population, due to maybe their immune system being compromised or having to be in quarantine, found themselves with no other option than to shop online. So first recognizing that, we actually had to go out with a campaign communicating to customers how do you shop online, and pushing that across all of our channels, because there's actually an education piece that we need to do around this is actually how you go through step by step the process to shop online. Security in terms of like entering credit card details was a really big concern for that group of customers. So making them to feel really, really confident that their information was protected. And now that they've been in some ways forced to make that first transaction, we can see that even with restrictions easing, they're now seeing the convenience of shopping online, and we're not losing those customers. So COVID's actually educated a generation or a cohort of customers to shop online that I don't think would have ever happened if we not gone through this really big change.
Boxy, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think we're seeing lots of trends when it comes to how retailers have adapted. And I think the other thing we've seen mandated is digital catalogue as well. And Paul touched on this in the oat bin. And it's been mandated at sea level if it hadn't already. And I think what I like about what's happening here is pre-COVID, again, accelerating what was happening beforehand, but pre-COVID, retailers, a lot of their digital catalogues were like a PDF of their print catalogue, and it sat somewhere on their website. But now they're really, we're seeing businesses really think about how to bring the digital catalogue to life across platforms like ours and others, and building out content around it, like recipes, live videos, how-to tutorials. And we've seen, some really good examples of this in market from BWS, Platypus, Rebel, the Warehouse Group, and indeed Coles. I think the other theme that Kate touched on was this need to get messages out quickly and educate customers that wanted to understand how to shop. So definitely we're seeing that in order to adapt, retailers are using digital and technology to get messages out quickly, keep customers up to date. And that's evolving too, to where retailers are now using technology to actually test and learn what messages work, which is great as these trends continue to evolve. This year, I don't think we've ever seen more of a shift between emotional drivers, like what a brand stands for, how it takes care of its customers and its people. Younger audiences in particular care about this. And then there's been really utilitarian things people care about, like price, product availability, delivery options. So it's been great to see retailers really test those two motivations as well quickly and figure out what's working in this rapidly changing environment and figure that out really fast.
Kate, how should retail marketers be changing their thinking as more customers shop online?
The first thing for us is about making sure that we are where the customer is. We know that they're online more often, and we need to make sure that Coles is showing up. I think the next thing is that I think, especially in a digital environment, you really need to think about um, being relevant to where the customer is. I always think about, showing up in Facebook or Instagram as you would show up, within a party. You need to be really relevant to the conversation that's being had right now. You need to be really, really engaging. You can't just take a TV ad and put it on TV and expect that it'll work the same way. So making sure that we're really relevant in that place. Understanding what the problems are that we need to solve for the customer and what are the ad products that can solve it, and being really, really collaborative. So I think a mistake that some brands make is that they look at new ad products and they just start using them without really thinking about what they're trying to do. We have a really collaborative relationship with Facebook, where we go and say, these are the problems that we're trying to solve. What's the best way to solve that? And then the constant test and learn to understand what's driving engagement with customers. Removing friction wherever possible. So, Kate talked earlier to the digital catalog in the past was just a PDF. We're now looking at how we can basically learn from how customers are engaging with it to continue to optimize, to make it shoppable, to make it more personalized and relevant over time. And the development of Coles & Co., which is a personalized experience that exists for our customers on our website, rather than this, one-to-many approach, are probably the key initiatives that we're looking at right now. And I would recommend everyone really think about that.
Foxy, what are your key points?
I'd say best practice too is also retailers using the flexibility of technology to drive profitability as well. I had a really interesting conversation this week with some of my US counterparts about Black Friday, because in the US, this is going to happen almost exclusively online due to the situation they're in. And it's retailers have stopped and thought, hang on a minute. In the past, we've done a lot of blanket offers for Black Friday, and we've rewarded our most unloyal customers. How can we be smarter this year? Because the technology will enable us to reward our more loyal customers with the best offers that we have available. And it's good for everybody because it doesn't become a race to the bottom.
Well, with all of these changes taking place, what's the future for bricks and mortar?
Well, look, there's no doubt bricks and mortar are here to stay. It's not the death of retail, it's certainly the rebirth of retail. And we've seen this significant changing landscape that we're all sort of trying to adjust to, whether it's a marketer or a consumer. And I think it's really positive for the customer because ultimately they will win. But there's certainly very much a digitally enhanced experience where people either do the research at home and then shop in store, or actually research in store and shop online, but they work together. It's this whole world of this whole idea of these worlds coming together in this omni-channel space. And you've got to be where customers are, taking on Kate's point and in thinking this through, whether that's on social media, on a desktop, on a mobile, or in a physical store. Now, in saying all that, this is all great news. It's exciting space for us as retailers and for customers, but the majority of sales still are done in the shop. So we have to remember that. So regardless of the growth in online, the majority of stores sales are done in a store. So we can't ignore the physical footprints. And my advice to retailers have been very much around reducing their physical footprint, investing in digital, and that's where you get the best of both worlds. But yeah, it's here to stay, and it's a very exciting time because I believe with all this new technology, of course, the customer experience is going to be enhanced in such a big way because there'll be a greater personalization, customization. We talked about catalogues. Now you'll be served up information that's specifically dialed up just for you personally, not for, most of marketers would say this, 50% of it is wasted. In this new world, of course, there's lower cost, better customer experience, and everybody's happy.
Paul, can you think of some retailers that are doing it really well in Australia?
Yeah, look, I think, we often forget about the supermarket division because we think it's an essential service, but they are really leading edge. I think they've been leading through COVID. If you think about the way they responded to COVID, they were certainly the gold standard, putting in the Perspex screens, the the physical distance markers on the floor, the hygiene aspects added to, which are really high traffic areas, but equally taking from that component, the safety part of it, but down to communicating to consumers. Those of you, and most of us would have some loyalty card often with both of the big major supermarkets, and of course getting that information now that's been actually served to you personally. I think they're again the gold standard. They've got the apps in place. The information technology is just significantly improving. I think there's a lot of great things still to come from that division.
Well, that's a lovely plug for you, Kate, moving into your thoughts on this question. What's the future of bricks and mortar for Coles?
Yeah, I think, for us, it's about optimizing the experience for the customer. And a really great example of a big focus of Coles right now is our Coles local stores. So we have 5 of them now in Australia. And what you'll find in those stores is they're smaller stores, really focused on the local range, really focused on the local community, making sure that we have a range that's really engaging for that specific demographic. And landing in innovation that you can only get in store. So what are the things that we can put into the store where customers can have a bit of an experience, where they can make their own? Our Scoop and Weigh was our first innovation in this space, and it's something that customers really, really love. So really thinking about, what's the personalized experience that you can only create within a store environment, something that's really tangible and engages all of your senses, like squeezing your own orange juice, which is absolutely incredible. Making that as meaningful as possible, and then just constant focus on innovation. We put things in stores and they don't work, we're failing fast and learning quickly. And where we do have some of this innovation, just rolling it out really quickly, making sure that it's in the right stores.
Geography and population have been challenges traditionally when it's come to e-commerce in Australia. Paul, has that changed this year?
Well, look, yes, that's our history in this country. So I'm old enough to sort of take you back a little bit, but certainly in the 90s, when retailers were looking for growth, because we're so geographically widespread, the only way you could drive sales is by opening up more stores, and you had to keep opening up shops all over the location. Of course, that strategy has come to bite us in the new digital world, where you don't need as many physical locations to be successful. And in fact, in my view, when I'm consulting with retailers, is to choose your store locations really selectively, make them flagship stores, and invest in digital. So in this new world, you don't need to have as many shops, of course, to be able to do a really good trade.
Boxy, what are your thoughts on that?
I think technology can play a role, and is playing a role in helping here. And there's lots of exciting things coming up in the future that can help with this last mile cost that's going to continue to be an issue in Australia. I think right now, as more shoppers turn to online, I know one thing technology can do is help retailers find more profitable click and collect customers to reduce that last mile cost. And I think, put really simply, technology can use past customer behaviours to predict future ones. But I think as we move into the future, technology is enabling things like crowdsourced delivery. Of course, we've seen email and text used to keep people up to date with where their deliveries are at for years, and that's moving into messenger and retail apps. And I think also, ultimately, I don't think it'll be anytime soon, but who knows, the driverless delivery or drones might play a part in our environment.
Kate, how has Coles approached that challenge? Are we going to see drones dropping off milk and cookies next door?
Anything's possible. So I think that from a short-term perspective, it's without a doubt, following on with what Kate Box said, in that using technology to drive awareness of digital, driving awareness of online capabilities for Coles, and really focusing on this, customers that are looking to, go after those really, really big baskets and those profitable customers. Also, we're continuing to focus on how we can remove friction throughout the journey, to Kate's point around how we use apps to communicate with customers when they can expect their delivery. to come. And then for us, it's really about, the big, making some big bets from a supply chain perspective and innovating in that space. We're basically looking at what are the things that we can do right now to reach the right customers and make that experience for customers better. But at the same time, what are the big investments that we need to make so that we can reach more Australians more quickly in a more cost-effective way?
Fantastic. And throughout the series, we've been lucky enough to ask experts from a range of industries to look at 2021 and see what's coming up ahead. Paul, what do you anticipate for retailers in the new year?
Sure, it's a really good question because we don't have a crystal ball, that's for sure. So we're looking into Christmas, and it's the all-important trading quarter because it can be up to 2/3 of a retailer's profits. So it's really important that retailers do particularly well through November, December, and into January. We move into next year, of course, we don't have the benefit of government stimulus. So government's been injecting historic levels of stimulus. There's about 60 billion a quarter, which is significant. When we move into next year, that completely tapers off. We're into the federal budget cuts, which are about 3 billion. So we go from 60 billion worth of stimulus to 3. So you've got to look at next year very cautiously. And I think, not all retailers will recover. There's no doubt. So we're thinking, particularly in Victoria, who have done it particularly hard, they will hopefully build some cash reserve up, but they haven't got enough cash reserves. They may not see the future into 2021. But generally, retailers will be remaining sort of cautiously optimistic going into Christmas. But next year is a different. It might be a conversation for a new series because we'll have more information. But we're looking at that very cautiously next year.
What are your tips for retailers to prepare for that year, Paul? Is there something that they could be doing now?
Absolutely. So the most important thing is really about trading exceptionally well in this period and realizing the dynamics of Christmas trading have completely changed. So it's definitely very much more event driven. So we're seeing sort of Black Fridays, Cyber Monday, those types of events have had a much bigger impact on the overall promotional calendar and celebrating, I guess, those sort of gift giving type events to actually drive customers to shop as early as possible. So, that's the biggest thing, because if you can build those cash reserves through this quarter, it'll allow you to trade through the leaner months. And that's the biggest advice I can give to retailers.
Great stuff. Boxy, what are your thoughts on 2021?
We're definitely going to see this focus on good experiences, both online and in store. I loved Paul's shout out earlier that the reality is it's still going to be 85-90% of sales that happen in store. But I do think that the work that we're seeing done in providing really good experiences online will continue. I think it'll also in the future, there'll be some more layers to it. Like in the online space, we'll start to see more social layers put on that. So we already see groups sharing tips and finds from particular stores. We see groups identifying and sharing trends. And we can expect to see that we'll build more ways to enable that sort of social shopping experience online to grow. And I think also all of these foundations that are being laid now by retailers in where product can be discovered online will also evolve to become more three-dimensional in the future. They're building the foundations now that will mean they can integrate things like augmented reality when it becomes more widely available as an option. And I think the other future trend I think we will see is just retailers continuing to rethink their communications channels like digital, catalogue and their media.
Kate, what's your crystal ball saying?
Well, the economic impact and what happens in the future, we think will continue to be a bit of a challenge. So as I said, we were spoken a bit around the importance of value. Making the most of events and celebration and maximizing every sales opportunity that you have is going to be increasingly important. And I think that Australians are very much still looking at celebrating at home. And I think that there's a lot for retailers to do to help customers have those really great experiences. And then, one thing that is really top of mind for us, and I would encourage everyone to think about is true omni-channel thinking at a business level. Do you have an online marketing team and then a store marketing team? Do you have an online buying team and and a store buying team? And are you really thinking about from your business out to the customer? Because quite often businesses impose their structures and their P&Ls onto the customer, and that shows up in communications. So really thinking about setting your business organization up to create an omni-channel experience, and really challenge yourself around what that experience looks like online and how you use everything from ad technology to how you show up on your website. One thing that really stood out for me across lockdown was how Mecca pivoted and created virtual beauty consultants. And there's no reason why things like that should go away. And I think that, we in the past spoke so much about retailtainment being in a store, but it does need to be moved on. It has to move online, and we need to really move away from these walls within businesses between online and stores, and really think about that so that we can create an omni-channel experience for our customers.
That's an amazing point to end on. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining today. And to our viewers, make sure you scan the QR code and take a short survey to let us know your thoughts. Now, before we go, we do have to thank all of the incredible people that have been involved in the Future Now series. So many, I needed to write them down on an old school piece of paper. Bricks and mortar and paper still exists. A big special thanks to Facebook for supporting the series, Alexandra Sloan, Lucy Bellamarino, Kathy Zhu, and Meg Montgomery. Over at Clear Hayes Consulting, thank you to Janelle Lawrence, Alex Hayes, and Richie Kenzie. And from the Ad News team, thank you, Paige Murphy and Paul Carroll. To everyone involved, it's been an absolute pleasure. And to the viewers, thank you for tuning in.